Well, good afternoon, everyone. Guess we're ready to begin this webinar on the VA Transformation 21 Total Technology Next Generation Procurement. I'm Steve Mims, and I'll be your host for the introduction piece of this, and Ab Van will do the details on the production. If we just go to the next slide right here. This webinar is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. We're going to hold a Q&A session at the end, so you can send in your questions during the webinar by the chat system to the right of your window, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. And you can also download this presentation by clicking on the link under File on the right-hand side panel in your window. Now, a little bit about GDI Consulting. We've got 10 years worth of solid performance. We've had a pretty sustainable, respectable growth, 81% win rate. We've got over 50 proposal managers and writers with experience covering almost all federal agencies, and over 84% have more than 20 years of government proposal support. In 2018, we had 210 wins. I'm sure that number is higher now, but we have to depend on reports from the government for the details. This is a list of some of the key proposals that we conducted for our clients. They run from the Army Global Intelligence down to NASA, or I guess I should say up to NASA. Don't want to spend too much time on this. Let's get into the program here. Ab is going to talk about the presentation agenda. You there, Ab?
Yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Ab Van. I head our Capture and Proposal Development Department, and I'll be going through today's webinar on this T4NG project. The usual outline of our webinars: what's the focus of the RFP, its highlights, the scope or the areas that it's going to cover, and then the proposal structure, the evaluation criteria, a little bit about partnering, what we think your win strategy should be, and then the Q&A. So, and as Steve said, as we go along, if you have any questions, just type it right on the chat box and we'll get to them at the end. So with that said, let's start with the focus of the T4NG project. This is a multi-agency IDIQ multiple award task order contract, and it's supposed to provide all types of solutions, IT solutions, health IT and telecommunications, to include services and incidental hardware and software for the customers who put the task orders. So this is essentially an IT project, IT, health IT, and telecommunication. Also, I should mention that the T4NG on-ramp, in other words, this specific bid, is intended to add additional service disabled veteran-owned small businesses, STVOSB companies, onto the existing T4NG IDIQ. So if you're not a STVOSB company, you cannot participate as a prime on this RFP. You can still be a sub. Even if you're a large business, you can still be a sub. But and I'll get to that with regards to JVs. But for other small businesses too, you can still participate as teaming partners, but you need to be STVOSB to be a prime on this. Let's look at some of the highlights of this. I've put the solicitation number so you know what it is in case you want to search for that on the FBO website. Title is Transformation 21 Total Technology, or T4NG on-ramp. Obviously, it's a VA, Department of Veterans Affairs Administration. Some of the important dates. There was an industry day held on 6th of June 2019 and the slides are out. So if you go to the website, the FBO website, you can look at the slides. The draft RFP was released on 30th of September, and there was a slight change and an update on 2nd of October. So there is a draft RFP out now. And with regards to that draft RFP, you can provide your questions and as well as comments to the government before October 11th. So write down that date. If you have any questions or comments, you need to submit them before that date. The full RFP is scheduled to be released in November. This is, of course, when they were planning to issue the RFP in September. Now, they did submit it, the draft RFP on 30th of September, so they might be a little bit behind schedule. So this might be late November, probably in 2019 for the full RFP. And they are expecting that the contract awards will be effective 6th of March 2021. Not 2020, 2021. So it's going to take a while before they can actually come to terms with the final decisions. Okay. This is an SDVOSB companies only set aside again. So, and you need to be small under 541512, the NAICS code for IT. Number of awardees, so far they're expecting 7, but they've said that they will be adding more if need be. But right now they're expecting to select 7 companies. The award ceiling is 22.3 billion. That doesn't mean that is the one for these 7 awardees. That's for the entire program. So that's added to the 16 awardees that are already in there, as far as the SDVOSBs and plus the 12 companies that are large businesses under this program. Period of performance is 5 years. The initial period of performance was 10 years, but now 5 has passed by the time they award. So there will be 5 years of performance. Places of performance is both CONUS and OCONUS, so outside US as well. But the specific location will be specified in each of the task orders, obviously. And it can be both at government or at your own site, contractor site. There's no requirement for security clearance at this point for submission of proposals. But once you start participating in TOs, for each task order, there might be some sort of a security clearance required, and you have to abide to that at the task order level. Okay, here's a list of the current prime contractors, at least what the government has issued. There are 16 SDVOSBs. There was also a mention of 17 companies, but so far that's the list of the 16 SDVOSB companies that were awarded initially, and there are 12 large businesses that were awarded. So these are the current contract holders for this RFP, for this bid. I should say that you're not competing with them. This is an on-ramp, so you will be added to them if you're awarded. Let's look at the functional areas. There are 11 functional areas: program management support, system software engineering, software technology demonstration transition, test and evaluation, independent verification and validation, enterprise network support, enterprise management framework, operation and maintenance, cybersecurity, training, and IT facilities. So these are all the service areas that you will be getting task orders on and can provide services to the government. Now, I have listed these in a little bit more details. Each of these, I will not, for the sake of time, go through each of these, but you can both look at the RFP as well as these slides and see what exactly is meant, for example, for program management. These are the subheadings under that, and that's included for all the 11 areas. So we'll skip them quickly. Operation and maintenance obviously covers a large plethora of things, including data center administration and all of that. And then we get to cybersecurity, training, and information technology facilities. So these are the 11 functional areas that it is also important in the proposal. I'll get back to that. But these are the functional areas that you will be providing services on to the government. Now, why is it important in the proposal? Because when you're providing and preparing your past performance, you need to provide some contracts that show that you have had this experience. You need to align them to these 11 functional areas. So you need to pick the best contracts that show you have experience and have done different types of IT projects aligned with these 11 functional areas. There's no mention as to how they're going to actually evaluate past performance, but obviously a company that has done just cybersecurity will get some sort of a score, but a company that covers, say, 8 or 9 out of these 11 and can provide projects for them will get a higher score. So that is my thinking that they're going to evaluate it that way. So it is important to understand what the functional areas are, and it is important to select your projects on that basis. We'll get to that a little bit further along. Okay, let's look at the proposal structure for this bid. As you can see, there are 6 volumes that we need to prepare. Volume 1 is technical, Volume 2, past performance, Volume 3, veterans employment. They want to see how many veterans you have as a percentage of your total employee count. Volume 4, small business participation commitments, and we'll get to that, what they are. Then price, and finally the usual solicitation, offer and award documents and certain reps and all that. Now, how are they going to evaluate? The evaluation process will be in 2 steps. So you're not supposed to provide all those volumes at the same time to the government. First, you just provide Volume 1 technical, Volume 5 price, and Volume 6 the usual legal solicitation, offer, and award documents. And they're going to go through these 3 volumes, and if you're good as far as their requirements are concerned, then they will invite you to step 2. And that is where you again submit Volume 1 here with a different content, and I'll get to that. Volume 2, past performance, Volume 3, veterans employment, and Volume 4, small business participation commitment. So it is important to understand that this is going to be a 2-step process, the evaluation. And right now, when you're preparing the proposal, you just need to prepare Volumes 1, 5, and 6 and submit those only. But do remember that, for example, as far as past performance is concerned, as far as teaming is concerned, you can't change it in the middle. In other words, if in your initial submission you haven't mentioned the teaming, it will be not a very feasible, prudent thing to do to include another company in your teaming for step 2. So you have to do all your teaming and preparations and everything prior to step 1 and start from there. Let's now dive into that. The evaluation factors are 5. Factor 1, technical. That's itself has two sub-factors. The sample task sub-factor, which is called sample task 1 and sample task 2, and then the management sub-factor. In step 1, when they're going to review and then delegate you to a second step, they're going to look at sample task 1 only. And then in step 2, when they're reviewing the full proposals from all companies, they're going to review sample task 2. That's why there are 2 sample tasks. Sample task 1 is for step 1. Here, you use under volume 1, technical, you provide your narratives towards sample task 1. And then when you're invited to step 2, under volume 1 technical, you provide your narratives for sample task 2. That's why there are 2 sample tasks. And then there's the management subfactor. Factor 2 is past performance. Factor 3, veterans employment. Small business participation, factor 4, and price, factor 5. Now, these are in the order of importance. So factor 1 technical is the most important, and they've said that it's considerably more important than the rest, and it's a descending order of importance. Now, within factor 1 also, the sample task is considerably more important than the management subfactor. So the sample task subfactor is much more important than the management subfactor. So these are the evaluation factors in the process. Okay, let's look at what goes into volume 1 technical. Step 1, as I said, is the sample task 1, and it's 25 pages limit. As far as the page limit is concerned. If you're moved up to step 2, then here they haven't mentioned what the page limit is. They're going to specify that later. But you're supposed to write towards a subfactor 2, sample task 2, which is a different sample task. So sample task 1 will be for step 1, and sample task 2 will be for step 2. You also need to provide a management subfactor, which has a page limit of 10 pages. They're going for both subfactors, in other words, for the sample task and for the management subfactors, both of them, they're going to look for 2 things: understanding of problems and feasibility of approach. So these are the issues that they're going to gauge your writings, your narratives towards: understanding the problem and feasibility of approach. And as I mentioned, factor 1, technical, is the most important factor. So here you have to focus really on your proposal to make sure that you can be one of the 7. Now, factor 2 is past performance. Here, there are some limits as to the number of projects that you can provide. If you're the prime can submit up to 2 projects. So you can't provide more than 2. And then you can provide 1 project for each of your major subcontractors. They're allowing 3 major subcontractors. So you can't say I have 6 major subcontractors. Maximum is 3. So they're allowing 3 major subcontractors, and you can provide a project for each of them. So if you count, that would be a maximum of 5 that you can actually submit. 2 from you as the prime and 3 from your subs. Now, when they say major subcontractor, that can be up to 3. The ones that you have a CTA with, and the CTA goes in the management volume, and you need to receive, it means the 3 that receive the greatest amount of subcontract work. So the way to see which, you might have more than 3 subcontractors, but major subcontractors are the ones that have the highest value as far as the subcontract amount that you're giving them. Now, the projects, either by you or your subs, can be federal, state, or commercial. They can also be done as prime or as sub. So if you've done a project as a sub, that's good to go too. It's not that you only have to be prime on the projects. The same stands for your subcontractors. They can use projects that they were prime on, or they can use projects that they were sub on. Projects must have been performed within the last 3 years from the date of the RFP issuance. Now, RFP hasn't been issued yet. That's step 1 RFP. That hasn't been issued, so we can't give an exact date, but it will be something, say, November of 2016, something like that, assuming that the RFP is coming out on November 2019. Another limitation is the value of each project must be over $5 million. And obviously, it must be relevant IT projects. This is where I said you need to understand what those functional areas are. And so the project that you provide must be relevant, must be in line with those. So it is important to understand that you can't use projects that are less than $5 million. That's the total contract value, not annual. Total contract value must be over $5 million. If it's ongoing, it might be a question. How do you calculate the total contract? It means usually the way they accept it is that base year plus all optional years. So base year plus all optional years, even though they haven't been exercised, that's considered the contract value. Okay, now for JVs, they've said that up to one project from each member and up to one project from the JV. So that's a total of 3, unless you have multiple, members in the JV. So that's past performance and how you're supposed to provide your projects. Now, the projects go into specific forms that they have provided. And you need to provide specific information about the projects that are usual in most RFPs. Factor 3 is the veteran employment file. In other words, you must provide the number of veterans currently employed by the prime. First of all, by the prime and not the subs, so it doesn't matter how many veterans the subs have or don't have. It's how many you as the prime have. And also it means right now when you're submitting the proposal, not what you're planning to hire, right now. That's the thing. And you have to certify that. They're looking for percentage and not necessarily the total number. So you might be a small company having only 10 employees, but if all 10 are veterans, you will probably get a higher score here compared to a company that has 1,000 employees. Well, a small company doesn't have 1,000, but say a company that has 200 employees, but only 2 of them are veterans. So it's really important what the percentage is. And then I've put in the definitions just in case there's any ambiguity. A veteran is defined as an honorably discharged member of active military duty, reserve, or National Guard. All others are just employees of the company. So on that basis, there's a form that you have to fill out, and they're going to score you on that basis. Next factor, factor 4, small business participation commitment. Okay, they have some goals, and you have to, the more you can get closer to these goals, the better scoring you get. So for SDVOSBs, 10%, VOSBs, 12%, small disadvantaged business, this includes 8As, 5%, women-owned small businesses, 5%, and hub zones, 3%. Now, if you as a company are obviously an SDVOSB, that is automatically covered, the 10%. The VOSB is covered too. So, I mean, a SDVOSB is automatically a VOSB. So, all primes automatically cover that 22%. Now, you have to look at the other subs that you bring to the team and see how they cover. Now, the important thing here, though, is what I've written at the bottom. Notwithstanding the discrepancies with the above, in other words, you might not get exactly those percentages, but you must have a 35% overall small business participation, or you will be just disqualified. In other words, you won't get an acceptable rating on this factor, and you will be disqualified. So a minimum of 35% small business participation is a must. That's the thing that you need to work towards. Okay, let's go to factor 5, which is price. Now, price is essentially straightforward. Just a few points I wanted to mention. There is a Excel sheet that you have to fill out for the pricing sheet. You're going to fill out the pricing sheet for 5 years. That's years 6 to 10, because we are 5 years into the program. And the total evaluated price will be the sum of all these years, including the total proposal labor, total material ODCs, and total travel costs. So all of these are added to come to show what the sum of the total evaluated price will be. Also note that the estimated labor hours in that Excel sheet are only for evaluation. It doesn't mean that the government is actually going to give you those many hours. It's not exact. It's just for evaluation. One point, very important, they've mentioned it. Even one unrealistically low labor rate gives them the ground to disqualify you. So make sure that all the labor rates are well worked on and they're not unrealistically low. They haven't said that they're going to do that if it's unrealistically high, but they want to make sure that nobody is underbidding. The blended labor rates must have the escalation rates for years to come built in. So don't forget that. You're starting with year 6, which is 2021, and then going forward. So for each year, you need to add an escalation rate, which they've said a minimum of 1.5%. If it's less than that, they're going to ask you why. You have to provide some explanation why you're not adding those escalation rates. Rates are for 3 types: on-site, in other words, government's on-site; off-site, which is usually a contractor's place; and occurrence. So these are 3 different rates that we must provide. We also must provide a document showing a price methodology. In that, we are supposed to say what our fringe rates are, overhead rates, G&A rates, and if applicable, facilities capital cost of money rate, and then obviously the profit percentage. So that's a document that we have to provide as well, but that's not going to be used for evaluation, but we must provide it nonetheless. Okay, let's discuss a little bit about partnering as well. What are the benefits of partnering for companies? You might say, hey, I want to go solo on this. That's fine. I mean, there is nothing against you going solo as a STV/OSB company, but there are some benefits that you should consider when making the final decision. First of all, bringing in a large number of, well, not a large number, but strong subcontracting companies does give the VA the confidence that you do have the ability to perform. Obviously, for example, if you can show that your subcontractors cover all those 11 functional areas, you will be given a higher weight than not so. So using partners and subcontractors does give VA the confidence that you do have the ability to perform. And this becomes very beneficial in Volume 1 Technical in 2 ways. If you remember Volume 1 Technical, one was the preparation of the sample tasks. So you can use your subs to actually help you in the preparation of those sample tasks, and also the management. So in the management part, you can mention these teaming partners and their capabilities, and this way strengthen your position and provide confidence to VA. For Volume 2 as well, we mentioned that past performance is important. Here you can use your partner's past performance to strengthen your rating. And for Volume 4, obviously small business participation, you can use the subs different set-aside capabilities, I mean, whether they're women-owned or what, and that way strengthen your proposal as a whole. And in general, fill in gaps for specific RFP requirements. Obviously, you might be able to use their knowledge, their experience, and any other gaps. Once you do a gap analysis of your capabilities, fill in those gaps through the use of these partners. And we do have a system in place just in case. If you're a sub and would like to partner with other companies, just let us know. And if you're a prime looking for subs, just let us know as well, and we'll put your hands in hand. There's no cost or anything like that. We're just in the middle, and we'll help companies in that way. And I should mention, I did receive a question on this. You can be a sub to multiple primes. So that's something to consider. Okay. We have put together a short slide on what the win strategy for this RFP would be, and I'm going to discuss that a little bit. Obviously, you need to do a gap analysis on your experience and SP requirements, and based on that, see how you can increase your chances by bringing in subs and other help. Now, decide on your partnering strategy based on that gap analysis, which I covered in the previous slide. It is very important to have partners on this one. And now, as far as your focus and concentration, it should be on subfactor 1 of volume 1. If you remember, volume 1 technical had 2 subfactors. Subfactor 1 was the task projects, 1 and 2, and then or they call it sample task 1 and 2, and then it had a subfactor 2, which was management. Obviously, management is important, but the most important one is that subfactor 1, which is the sample task. So try to focus there and try to have the best excuse me, try to have the best narrative on that. Remember that in step 1, they're not going to look at the rest of the proposal. They're going to look at just how well you've written the narrative about the sample task 1, and then they're going to look at your price. That's all. So you really need to shine on that volume 1 technical sample tasks to be able to advance to step 2, because prices, they're not going to be very important as far as the selection at that point is concerned in step 1. You just need to have done your homework properly and not be out of range. Other than that, everything relies on volume 1 technical. So you need to focus there. Now, you also need to start early. Don't wait until the RFP is released. Don't wait until November. You have a lot of work to do. Obviously, most companies must go after their teaming partners and must prepare themselves. A lot of companies are doing it like this. They're creating, going forward with the proposal, creating a sort of a pseudo pink, and then waiting until the RFP drops, and then refining that pseudo pink or sometimes even pseudo red version of the proposal. And I have mentioned that don't use your subs just for volume 4 SP participation. Make full use of their know-how for volume 1 for those for the sample tasks. Now, I'm going to get to that, but it is important to understand you cannot bring in consultants to write towards the sample tasks. That's a no-no. You need to certify that you have not done that. So you cannot get outside help for writing towards the sample tasks. So what you do, either you have in-house the people who know how to write towards that, or if you don't, bring in a subcontractor who does. So you might bring in a subcontractor just for that, just because they know how to write towards that sample task properly. So it's really important to use the subcontractors for all volumes that is possible, including volume 1 and 2. Now, get outside help. It's important. You don't want to lose this chance. So don't rely on your own resources only, But at the same time, as I mentioned, do not use outside SMEs for volume 1, subfactor 1 sample tasks. That's not allowed. So there, as I said, either you have the people in person who can write properly, or if you don't, bring in a subcontractor. Now, that does not mean that you can't use outside help as far as proposal managers or technical writers are concerned, but the actual meat, the actual technical writing of the sample tasks must come from your in-house people or your subs. And finally, get the proposal reviewed by somebody outside your system, outside your organization. It's really important to have an independent body review the proposal. You don't want to make any mistakes on this one. Okay, in that regard, the services we provide, we have 3 types of services. We provide full proposal development, including the capture part and the full proposal preparation of both step 1 and 2, with that note that I mentioned, that the technical writing or the technical piece of the sample tasks should not be done by us. We will not be doing that because that would disqualify your project. But we will provide the proposal manager, when we are doing full proposal development, we will provide the technical writing for the other sections as well as the proposal management part. We also do reviewing and auditing for all factors, and we do provide staff augmentation. So in the first one, which is full proposal development, we take responsibility of the proposal. Sometimes you're just short of a person, say a proposal manager or a writer or a graphic artist or whatever. We provide that. And we can also provide a capture manager. We can also do black hats, competitive intelligence, and all those processes. So these are the services that we provide. And in case you want to contact us, you can you can contact Marone Freedy, who is our business development VP, and his email and phone number is here. That's for commercial, or if you want a quote or you want to offer, you can contact Marone. Or if you have any technical questions, you can contact me. I've put in my contact info there as well. So for any technical questions, please contact me. Okay, so they've said that how will the VA advise if you're selected for step 2? They've said that once they go through step 1 and select some of the companies, they will communicate directly with only those companies that are selected for step 2. They will send them the RFP and they'll give them 30 days. So once you're selected for step 2, you will be sent the RFP directly, and you will be given 30 days to provide your response to the RFP. Okay. Will a CTA require any external certification by SBA or VA? Not if this CTA is just a prime sub-agreement, so there's no certification required. But if you want to create a JV, the JV must be approved by the VA, not SBA, VA. So because this is SDVOSB bid, so the VA must approve the JV, especially if it's a mentor-protege. I should mention that mentor-protege JVs are acceptable. In other words, large companies can be involved as mentors, and then an SDVOSB company can be the protege. But that JV must be approved again by VA to be able to bid. So they need to be approved. Another question is, can a JV also include past performance for subcontractors? Yes, they have said nothing against that, and there was actually a protest against Oasis previously on that, because originally Oasis had said that if you're forming a JV, you're not allowed to use subcontractors. That was lifted due to that protest, and that's being lifted. I've seen that being lifted in others that had that originally. So there's nothing against that. In other words, you can have a JV and at the same time bring in subs, unless they change something in the final RFP. So far, there's nothing against that. Another question is, can we use prime and one major subcontractor veteran percentage combined? If you mean as far as employees, no. It is only the prime's employees that count. In other words, you as the prime, if you have 6 employees and all 6 are veterans, you're 100%. And then your subs, none of them might have any veteran employees. That's fine. And the government is not going to look at that at all. So if I understood your question correctly, and you're talking about the number of employees, it's only from the sub. You cannot bring in the it's only from the prime. You cannot bring in the subcontractors, whether they have a lot or they have none. It has no effect. Okay, let's see. Next question. Can you prime and join other teams as a sub? Yes, you can do that as well. They're allowing it to be very open, it seems, so that companies can have multiple teams formed and things like that. So this is an open system. Are you required to provide OCONUS labor rates? Yes. They're asking for 3 types of labor rates, it seems. Now, they might change it, but so far they're asking for CONUS, 2 types, government sites and contractor sites, and then OCONUS. Obviously, OCONUS is government site. So 3 types they're asking for. Okay, a company has said that they're looking for potential subs. They want to prime. So any companies who would like to prime, let us know, and we will introduce you to each other. Another company is the other way around. We are an SDVOSB sub looking for a prime partner. So here you are. These are the companies that can be formed. So as I said, all companies who would like to have some sort of a partnering arrangement, either as a sub or a prime, let us know. We'll put your hands in each other's hand. Okay, my company XYZ is interested in being a sub to primes. We are a CV, a certified STVOSB, a third-party certified EDVWOSB, and a locally certified MB. Okay, so we're getting a lot of these. We will certainly, after the webinar, we will introduce everyone to each other, just in case, so that you can go from there. Okay, who can we contact regarding teaming with the prime? Contact either Marone or me, and as I said, our information are on the last few slides of this slide deck, and you can download the slide deck as well, as mentioned on the right-hand side under File. Can a JV have 0 past performance? The JV itself, you mean? I'm assuming you're saying the JV itself. Well, that's a good question, because the way the RFP is written, it says the JV members must can provide up to 1. It says like this: the JV members shall provide up to 1 project, and the JV itself shall provide up to 1. That's a little bit hard to understand. In other words, it could mean that if you're going to provide a project by the JV, it can't be more than 1, but that shall is a little bit tricky. It means that it might mean that they want at least 1 project, 1 project from the JV by itself, which would totally change the picture, because that means that new JVs cannot be formed if they're saying that you must provide 1 project in the name of the JV, because that means that the JV must have been formed before prior to this, and then had gotten a contract. So I don't think that they mean the JV must provide one. It's just saying that if you're going to provide any contracts under the name of JV, you can't provide more than one. But that's one of the questions that we can put to the government on that regard. There is another question. On slide 22, is it true that in order to achieve an overall 35% small business participation, a company must meet all the set-aside requirements, STVO, SPW? No. As I said, there are two requirements. One are those goals that are written. So obviously, if you're close or exceed those goals, you get higher scores. But if you don't get to 35% overall small business, you're going to be disqualified. Now, say a worst case scenario is this. An SDVOSP company itself will not have any subs, but it's going to execute the project, okay? So it's going to get that 12% for VOSP, and it's going to get 10% for SDVOSP, but it's not going to get any score for women-owned, 8A, hub zone, all of that. That's fine. It's going to get less score. They're not going to disqualify it because it's an STVOSP and it's doing everything by itself. Now, contrast this to something that you're going to sub a large business or a number of large businesses that are going to do, say, 80% of the job. If that is the case, or even 70% of the job, if that is the case, you're not going to give 35% of the project to small businesses. That means you will be disqualified. So that is the 35% is that. You need to make sure that 35% goes to small business. Now, that small business can be yourself as the prime or the other small business subs. Overall, you need to prove that 35% of it will be done by small businesses. Okay, another question is, can you review the project 5 million requirement, the formula for determining? It's very, the way it's written, it just says that it's supposed to be, the contracts must be over $5 million. So far they haven't said that, because in projects like Oasis or others, they go for annual value. But here they have not mentioned annual value. They just say the total contract value. So essentially they're looking for projects, total contract value of 5 million. It might be a project that that was done in 5 years, but still $5 million. That's fine. As long as the total contract value is over $5 million done by you. Now, say you were a sub to a project that was $30 million, but you only did $1 million. That's not acceptable. You as the prime who are submitting your proposal must have done the project. The value of your contract must be over $5 million, whether it was done as a prime or whether it was done as a sub. Your contract must have been over $5 million. Another question, if a major sub is a women-owned small business, does that factor into this small 35%? Of course. So essentially you have to show that if you're a prime yourself, if you're a STVOSP, you automatically have done 22%. At least. You just have to show that you are above that 35%. So for small businesses, that's not a problem, I don't think. What counts here is to pick and select the best subs, those 3 major subs, to exceed the goals for women-owned, for hub zone, for 8A, and all those. So that's usually the more important factor rather than 35%. Any other questions? I think we've reached the limit of the questions. Okay, good. Now, as I said, if you have more questions, feel free to email me, and I will certainly respond back to you. The recording for this webinar, if I do see that some did not get the voice properly for some of the slides, the recording of this will be sent to you tomorrow morning within 24 hours. So in case you don't receive it, get back to us. It will be automatically sent to all those registered. I would like to thank you, everyone, and we look forward to have you on our future webinars as well. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.